Hi, everybody. I'm Katie Couric, talking to you from the CBS News studios here in New York City. This is a Facebook chat, my very first one. So I'm new at this, so I ask you please be gentle. I wanted to do this because I thought it would be a fun way to connect with folks. If you're going to get in trouble because you're at work and you're watching this, all two of you, I apologize. So be careful if your boss comes out of his or her office. One of the reasons I wanted to do this is I wanted to mention that I've got a new online program, which I hope that you all will check out. It's called Katie Couric, very webby. And one of the reasons I wanted to do it is because sometimes in a 22-minute format in the evening news, it's hard to do expanded interviews, and interacting with people and having a natural conversation is sort of what I really love to do. And we thought, gosh, we've got this wild, wild west of the internet, unlimited real estate. It doesn't mean anybody's looking at your house, but what the heck? And so I thought this would be a fun opportunity. I'm here with my friend Tony Masilis, who is a producer here. Oh, and I've got my flip-flops on, which I think are showing. Got my heels were killing me. Anyway, Tony and I work together on a lot of my .com stuff. He's been a huge help to me here at CBS News, and he's going to be, I guess, monitoring the questions as they come in live.
As they come in, yeah. Brandon Richards just gave a shout out saying, "Oh my God, there she is." You know what? I see her every day, and I still say that when she walks through the door. Oh my God, there she is.
Well, thank you, Brandon. Anyway, so I guess basically what we're going to do is just hear what some folks are talking about, or questions they might have.
People want to submit their questions, sure. And any topic is fair game, but I think we're going to get several.
Can you edit some of those out?
Yeah, I'll be judicious in what I select, but
Okay, good.
Judging by what I'm seeing here, I think we're going to have several of them on Glenn Beck. And I think we might as well start there, right?
Okay, sure. Yeah.
There's a question from a guy named Timothy who wants to know if anything in the interview surprised you.
Yeah. Well, Timothy, this is what I do. Talk to Timothy here. Hi, Timothy. I think one of the most surprising things is that when I asked Glenn Beck a question challenging the way, some of the things that he was saying, that he wanted to poison Nancy Pelosi and hit Charlie Rangel over the head with a skillet. I think those were the quotes. He said, "You asked Jon Stewart those same questions." And I said, well, do you consider yourself more like Jon Stewart than a journalist? And I think he is a strange hybrid, a combination of a comedian and a commentator, comedian-tator. And so I thought that was interesting, because I do think that because he's on Fox News and talks about a lot of these issues, that sometimes those worlds collide. For example, we also talked about the fact that he said that FEMA was setting up trailers like concentration camps in New Orleans. And he broadcast that, and he said that he had heard so many people talking about it, I guess it had been on YouTube, that he talked about it and said he couldn't debunk it. Ultimately, he did debunk it, but I think that's obviously the difference between news. A news organization would never put on information only because they couldn't debunk it. They would broadcast information because they found it to be accurate or true, or at least they would make their best effort to do so. So I think sort of what he considers himself was probably the most surprising thing to me. And I think, because he's sort of a commentator or whatever, comedian/commentator, he throws a lot of stuff out there that is pretty incendiary and kind of does some flame throwing. And I don't know if he actually sometimes really has figured out why he is saying certain things. I think he's very spontaneous and impromptu, but those positions aren't always borne out in the facts, or they could be just kind of a pretty thin thread that makes him say certain things. But I thought he was gracious and generous with his time. Whether you agree with him or not, he's a very influential person in modern media. And for that reason, I thought it was worth having a conversation with him and finding what he was all about. I was surprised he was a Mormon, too, by the way, which he converted in the 1990s. I think he was looking for a faith, and I guess he and his wife visited a number of different churches, et cetera, and then decided on Mormonism. I wish I could have talked about that more and what exactly about that faith appealed to him, but we had so many areas to hit, we couldn't really delve too deeply into any one of them.
Questions are really pouring in right now. Deb Gwynn wants to know what it was like to interview Mahmoud Ahmadinejad.
It's very surreal. And Deb, hello, Deb. And It's pretty scary because he's got so many people in his entourage. There are many, many people, Iranian officials, who accompany him on these interviews. He's actually a very short man and very slight in stature. He seems to be pleasant and friendly. He often doesn't answer the questions, and you really never know what you're going to get with him. And it's challenging because they're very long, involved, circumlocucious responses, and it's kind of hard to get him to really focus. But I think we're from two different worlds, and that's readily apparent when you sit across from him and try to have a conversation. He's obviously got some views that are very repugnant to most people. For example, the denial of the Holocaust, and that's very maddening for anyone who really understands what happened during that terrible event in world history. But you just try to push him as much as you can, but you're mindful of the fact that he still is the president of a country, and you have to show him a modicum of respect. How's that?
I think that was a sufficient answer.
Okay.
Very diplomatic. David actually wants to know if you have any plans for any more children's books.
Well, David, actually, that's very nice. Thank you. I appreciate that you even know that I've written a couple of children's books. I wrote The Brand New Kid, based on a situation I had in junior high where everybody was really mean to this boy from Hungary named Laszlo Steven Dosha. And then I wrote a second book called The Blue Ribbon Day, sort of trying to tell children that they're not good at everything, despite the fact that their parents are probably telling them they are. And I think as a result of this parenting technique, I think it's difficult for children to accept failure and disappointment. So that was the idea behind that one. And I've thought about writing a third. It's just I haven't had a lot of time recently. But if you have any ideas and you want to tell me on Facebook, I used to think it might be on peer pressure because Ellie and Carrie, the protagonists of the book, they've gotten older with each book, and I thought maybe I could write one about not succumbing to peer pressure in middle school. So if you have any other ideas, bring them on.
What about the internet? You could write a book about kids on the internet, right?
I need your help with that.
Oh, I don't know if I'd be any use for a children's book, but it leads us to our next question very conveniently, though. You see how I did that?
You should be on television. You're good at this.
Yeah, no, I'm too busy producing your stuff. Natalie wants to know how Facebook and Twitter, social media in general, have sort of changed the news business. It's something we talk about a lot.
I'm not sure. I wish I knew the answer to that. Obviously, I think it's a huge component, and I think we're still in the transition period. I mean, truth be told, I am not the most technologically savvy person on the block. I've been using Twitter, and I feel almost, I get sometimes uncomfortable. I don't really quite know. I don't think I understand the Twitter zeitgeist exactly. I try to use it to communicate things to people that I think they'd find interesting. Sometimes I'm embarrassed to tell them things because I sort of feel like, well, who cares about that? So I've used it for everything from saying, God, I'm really depressed because I just dropped my oldest daughter off at college. And I have to say—
Tell them where. Go ahead.
No, I'm not going to tell them where. She's going to an excellent school.
Right.
And the thing is, I got so many nice responses from other parents who were kind of feeling my pain, to quote Bill Clinton. And it was really wonderful. And I felt a part of a larger community. And then sometimes I talk about things I'm doing on the show or interviews I'm doing. I think I Twittered last night because I just could not believe how many people I had talked to, interviewed this week. And those are the weeks I think, wow, I have an incredible job. I'm so lucky because I did the Pakistani defense minister, Queen Rania, Glenn Beck, Tina Brown, and Barry Diller, Madeleine Albright for her book on the pins that she wears and what she's trying to communicate, or what she was when she would talk to world leaders. Didn't I do somebody else too?
When, this week?
Yeah. Oh, Michelle Obama.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yes, I interviewed.
Oh, just that one.
I interviewed Mrs. Obama for a column I'm doing in Glamour magazine every month because I want to give girls better role models than just Britney Spears and Paris Hilton. And I have 2 daughters, and I want them to see the incredibly impressive women who are out there doing very substantive work. So I talked to Queen Rania about that, and that's for that column. So anyway, I don't know if anybody really cares when I Twitter them, things like that. But I've enjoyed feeling like I have a closer connection and a relationship with some of the people who are watching. It's really hard for me when people write me mean, nasty Twitters, like really sarcastic and jerky Twitters, not to write them back. And occasionally, much to Tony's chagrin, I can't help but fire up. I try to be nice.
Her Twitter privileges.
I try to
no
be.
No more late night Twittering, lady.
I know. What do
We're
I
all
guess?
done with
do
that.
People do they drunk Twitter like they drunk dial?
I don't. I
Just
don't
saying.
know.
Anyway, so I think it is changing, and I'll have to think about that. Tony, you'd probably be a better person to answer that question. How do you think social media is changing what we do in the news business?
Well,
I think it's a promotional tool for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that Twitter has really been used more as a promotional tool by mainstream media to say things like, hey, we have a great piece on tonight that we want you to watch, or to say this Facebook live chat is coming up soon.
Or, to solicit questions for Glenn Beck. I did that.
Absolutely, and we did that all through the conventions,
right,
actually,
during,
and the election
exactly.
night.
We used Twitter because I want to ask what people watching are interested in knowing, and I've always tried to do that throughout my career. So we've used it to solicit great questions from people. But when you talk about the role of Twitter, these kinds of things in covering the news, I mean, maybe it was more cell phones, but it was also an awful lot of Twitter in the Iranian protests.
Absolutely.
I mean, the world would not have known what was going on if people who were taking part of that, taking part in that,
right,
were not communicating through, these devices. And it was absolutely imperative that we heard from them. The problem was journalistically, you couldn't verify a lot of those things.
But I think you've also sort of hit on the most important thing that Twitter and Facebook and social media in general are doing for the media. They're sort of giving access to amateur journalists or so-called citizen journalists to participate in a way. And some of the first pictures you get when there's a disaster or an accident.
On the Hudson River,
when
Sully Sullenberger landed that U.S. Airways flight.
The first picture was on Twitter, really. Yeah. It was sent by somebody's cell phone. So I think that's the way that it's sort of changing the business.
All right, what else?
Moving on.
As much as they'd love to hear us converse, Tony.
I'm sure they're really not that interested in what I have to say about anything right now.
That's not true.
Bob Brown, though, has a good question. A little bit more about Stand Up to Cancer. Are you going to do another show like you did last year? And maybe you can just give people a little quick update about where things are at.
Yeah, real quickly, Stand Up to Cancer, all three networks got together. I started feeling like I was being kind of piggy about colon cancer, and I thought there's so many other different kinds of cancer that deserve our attention. So the three networks, along with the Entertainment Industry Foundation, which is the philanthropic arm of Hollywood, basically got together. And we did this 1-hour show. I had very little to do with it. It was it was my idea, along with some other folks who are very active in the cancer community. And we ended up raising over $100 million. And what we're doing is we're giving money. I think we've given about $74 million in grants to scientists and researchers who are working together in different institutions. So someone from Harvard may be working with MD Anderson. We gave a lot of money for pancreatic cancer research, which, of course, Patrick Swayze just succumbed to, and my sister Emily died from about 6 years ago. And I don't know if we're going to do something. I'm always looking for ways to raise money for these hardworking scientists who are absolutely indefatigable in their pursuit of finding better treatments and cures. Whether we're going to do another Stand Up to Cancer, I'm not sure. But I thank you for asking. And you can go to standup2cancer.org and learn more about the movement and actually contribute and have a star in someone's memory. It's a really wonderful website, so you might want to check that out as well.
Here's another good question. Molly wants to know if you have any advice for amateur journalists, people that want to get into the business.
Well, I think, I think sometimes people forget that as a journalist, you should try to be as intellectually curious as possible and really educate yourself about so many different issues. I always tell my daughters, I wish I had taken more economics courses in college. So I think you need to get really a broad area. You need to read like crazy. You need to be a sponge. And really, I think if you want to kind of focus on an area of expertise, let's say you're really interested in medical journalism, I think that's a very smart thing to do, because just as in medicine, you see more and more specialized journalists these days. So that's something you may want to consider. And, be persistent, don't give up, and work really, really hard, because all of those things ultimately pay off no matter what you're pursuing. I feel like I'm giving a graduation speech.
Here's a final question, and then I guess we'll
That's it?
bring it
I'm
home.
having
We
so
have
much
plenty
fun.
more questions. We could
Or
probably
what-
sit here all day, but I think you're probably needed elsewhere.
Really? Maybe not. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Do you ever wear flip-flops on the evening news?
No, but
That
I
was
do
from
it.
Lamont, by the way.
Who's that?
Lamont.
Hello, Lamont. I go barefoot a lot because, you know what? I don't know, Lamont. I'm getting old or something, but my back is killing me because I wear these high heels. And so generally, by the time I'm doing the news, those puppies are off and I'm doing the news barefoot. But don't tell anyone. You remember how some people used to do the news wearing like cut-off shorts or blue jeans and then they'd wear a suit jacket?
Yeah, definitely.
Back in the day.
Sometimes you're standing up, sometimes you're sitting.
Yeah, yeah.
You couldn't really get away with that.
No, I don't think so. No, I don't think so. Oh, or do one more. Is there one more fun one?
Okay, let's see if there's one more.
Are there
fun
any
one.
really mean ones?
No, there are no mean ones, actually. Everybody's been
Thank
pretty
you.
well behaved. Yeah,
Thank
you
you.
all for that. How about this is a good one. Do you think your daughters will follow in your footsteps? Are either of them interested in journalism at all?
You know, Carrie's only 13. I have to say she's an excellent writer. She gave a speech the other day because she's starting an international issues club in her school, and they're going to be focusing on Darfur, worldwide literacy, and also they're adopting a school in Kenya for girls. They're going to be their sister school, and she's a really, really good writer. Ellie's a great writer, too. I have a feeling no. I mean, I don't think they know what they're going to do, but Ellie's 18 and Carrie's 13, and I don't know about you guys, but I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And I think sometimes it's a bad idea to be so myopically focused on a career at an early age. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure. I think they've seen the really good things that are brought to bear or happen when you go into television. And I think they've seen some of the less positive things. So that's an interesting question, but I have a feeling no.
Okay.
Should we end on a happier note?
We could end on a happier note. There are a lot of serious questions.
Yeah, well,
too,
we can do one
So
more
you want to do
serious
one
question?
serious one, maybe?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, because actually somebody wrote in and said, give her a hard one. Well, I'm not going to...
Give her a hard one. Okay, you can give me a hard one.
So anyway, there's a question from Scott
sounded
Lowe.
really, really sketchy.
Okay, Scott Lowe wants to know your take on the ongoing healthcare debate.
Oh my God. Well, this would take probably 15 minutes.
Well, maybe you
but
can
let me
just
try
sort of
to
summarize.
answer something
because we've
succinctly.
covered it a lot.
I think that the president could have done a better job of really outlining the issues and what's involved in healthcare reform. I think it's mind-numbingly dull and complicated, and a lot of people don't truly understand, A, why the system is broken, if it is in fact broken, and the proposals and how these proposals will actually improve the quality of care. I think, unfortunately, in this, as I don't mean to echo President Obama, but this in this news cycle, 24/7 news cycle, where there are little bits of information, that it leads to a lot of misunderstanding. I think there are a lot of politically motivated people out there who are trying to plant seeds of misunderstanding, and I think that that there will be some kind of healthcare reform that it won't be probably as wide-reaching. And I think that to be honest with you, the whole debate has kind of depressed me because it seems to be the country is so polarized and so angry, and the idea of kind of sitting down and working things out and saying, Medicare is a government-run program, or your benefits aren't going to be reduced, and have somebody challenge that assessment is a really necessary part of the political process, but it seems increasingly difficult to do that in this day and age, and it just makes me feel sort of depressed about it. So we'll see what happens, and on one level, I'm glad that people are making their voices heard, but the one thing I really don't like are opinions without portfolio or judgments without knowledge or basic information. I think that we have a lot of that, and then there are people fanning the flames, encouraging that as well. So I always feel like Rodney King, can't we all just get along? But can't we all just have a rational conversation about things? And that's the way I feel about the healthcare debate.
The biggest names in news in exclusive one-on-one interviews. Connect with Katie Couric right now at CBSNews.com.